Welcome to Disrupt You. This is the show where we'll hear what changes are headed to colleges and universities in all departments. We'll learn what innovation really means in higher education.
Hey y'all, welcome back. It is, for us at least, the first week of classes. I know it's a lot of schools first week of class. Some people started last week, maybe a few next week, but school started. Like, it is chaos around here. And we're just excited to bring a fun episode this week. We are going to kick off the school year with a little back and forth of what we're going to call what grinds our gears. Like, what about higher ed drives us bananas? And so I'm excited to do that today. Are you excited?
Hey, I tell you what, I like the yin and yang of the positive energy of the beginning of the semester, as well as the grind your gears. You know what? Before we get into the grind your gears, you know what I'm equally excited about? And this is full of sarcasm. Is welcoming back Yik Yak just in time for the beginning of the school year. How's the timing of that? Are you on that?
Did not know that even happened because I've been swallowed up by orientation, but I am glad you told me that because that is some irony right there.
You're not on Yik Yak?
I'm not on Yik Yak.
Oh, it's a toxic.
I will get there though. Oh, okay. But I don't want to be there then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yik Yak just complains, right? Which is kind of what we're going to do today. So maybe this was sponsored by Yik Yak.
By Yik Yak. Okay. All right. So how do we want to do this? So Erin, you had this idea of what Family Guy, right? The grinds your gears from Family Guy. That's where this idea came from. Okay, we got a list. We didn't talk about this list beforehand, right? So
no.
I say we kind of popcorn back and forth, get the other person's impression. Do you want to go first or second? What do you think?
I'm gonna go first.
Okay. All right. What's
Are you cool with that?
Thing that grinds your gears?
Okay, we'll start light and we'll get heavier. Okay,
like
so
okay. Progression.
First thing that grinds my gears is when in higher ed, when people call our students kids. That drives me nuts. Like, this is their emerging adulthood. They totally don't want to be seen as kids. I know they're younger than a lot of us, most of us, but I can't stand when we call them kids. Like, we got to call them students, young adults, something else. We got to come up with it. But sidebar, this was the year for me, Dustin. The year that all first years were born, my senior year of high school. That happened this year. It was a big moment. It's related to calling them kids, but I still don't want to call them kids. We got to call them students. We got to treat them like adults that, get them to where we want to go. Our goal is to get them to autonomous adults, right? So we got to stop calling them kids.
Okay. I'm taking two things away from this. One, I expect you to pull up to work in like a yellow Camaro convertible through your midlife crisis, knowing that this
obviously,
yes,
I'm painting the minivan yellow next week.
And man, I don't know. I don't know about you. I get an embarrassing situation sometimes where someone's like, Dr. York, I love that thing that you did, or I watched that video. I'm like, thanks, champ, because I don't know their name. So what you're saying is don't call them kid. Learn names. Learn names. Do not call the population kid as well. That's what I'm taking away.
Yeah, like, or even when we're talking about them, like, my kids in class today, like these are not second graders. They're they're in college. We gotta call them students, something like that. Yeah.
All right, I got one for you. I'm gonna start light. You started light. I'm gonna start light. I got some humdingers that are gonna make some people mad. By the way, I got some. I'm throwing heat. I'll go with that easy one. I got three of these. I got my easy one. And it's basically the basis of this entire show is the slow adoption of higher ed. Like this kind of slow moving thing, which isn't different than other organizations. Like the taxi industry was slow moving, movies were slow moving until they were disrupted, right? Hoteling was never really changed until Airbnb came around. So I think it's the slow adoption that, like, faculty, staff, administration just feeling like there's no competition. The other competition are other universities that are also not moving fast, and that drives my gears. What is it?
Grinds my gears. Grinds my gears.
It grinds my gears. Like, hey, I'm not trying to get killed off by the Uber of higher ed. I want to be doing the killing. Erin. I'm not gonna
lie. This is the Hunger Games. We got to get at it. Like we can't just be leisurely sitting around. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Bureaucracy is going to be the death of higher ed.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that is, we got to break that down. We got to break those walls down. There's a lot of places doing it, but we got to get better at it. Like we got to get Netflix at it, right? Like we can't, I mean, we talked about like, we can't be the Blockbuster. Yeah. You know, we got to be the Netflix. Netflix didn't kill Blockbuster. Blockbuster killed Blockbuster. And so we got to be better. We got to be better. We got to break down that red tape and get the ball rolling.
I'm trying to put in a pre-order for one of those Tesla robots. You see those humanoid Tesla? They look like human, like they're shaped as a human, and they walk around and do things for you. I'm saying, let's load those up on campus.
Load them up. Let's do it. Roll them out.
All right. What's your second?
My next one, I hate like this whole elitism about higher ed and on all different scales. Like I hate at a lot of places, there's this like elitism around faculty or greater than staff or greater than this or greater than that. And I think we work at a place that works really hard to kind of level that out, but it's still so prevalent in higher ed. It drives me bananas. So that and titles, like people just being so obsessed with like, what title do I have? What, you know, and I'm like, let's just get the job done. And maybe that's the whole, like, I don't like slowing down either. So it's like, I don't care who has to do the job. Let's jump in. Let's do it. Let's, you know, I don't care. I'll clean the toilets. It doesn't bother me. You know, it's like, let's get it done. Let's not worry about what our title is. Let's just do what we need to do. And I think that mentality, when you see that at places, I was just talking to someone yesterday about this and had said, you know, if you meet Apple executives, they don't talk to you about their title. They don't talk to you about who reports to who. And at the end of the day, she had asked like, wait, who do you report to or whatever? And you would have thought it was the opposite. That's the type of feeling I like, is this, we got to put the best heads in the room, regardless of where they sit, you know, in the organization, and we got to get stuff done. Yeah. We gotta do it. So that's another thing that grinds my gears about higher ed, is I think there's still this like this like archaic version of hierarchy and elitism, if you will. I think
that's because of like the culture and the history. I mean, higher ed used to be basically rich white guys, right? That was the history of higher ed, and even now, but it hasn't changed much because the top 1% of wealth pays more than the bottom 60% of college tuition. So there's still this like disparity on payment and who's attending, who's not attending. So man, I think it's just deep. It's a deep, you know, root in the system that, I think it has to change.
So I saw a meme yesterday that said the distance between 1980 and 2021 is the same distance between 1980 and 1939. Boom! Like, that is crazy, right? And especially in higher ed, 1939, like that was right before the big boom of higher ed. And thinking about that, doesn't that sound crazy?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That sounds nuts, you know, but I think we have moved as higher ed, but we got to move more. We got to move more. I mean, think about how much changed between 1939 and 1980. We got to move forward in terms of breaking down these barriers, breaking down the elitism. I was just telling you before, I'm going again. Sorry. It's just, you know, I'm sorry. I'm skipping my turn. I hate the term higher ed. It's so elite. Like higher ed feels like, I don't know what we need to call it, like purposeful ed or career ed, or I don't know what if I want to call it career ed, but you know what I mean? Like it's like primary education, that's elementary school, secondary education. What do we call higher ed? Because the word higher just seems like it's only for the elite, doesn't it?
So it's a branding issue is what I'm hearing.
We got to rebrand the whole system.
I've heard you, what was it, 2 weeks ago? I've heard you talk about the branding issue of the liberal arts education.
Yeah.
Right. So what I think we need to do is Boswell sits down and rebrands the whole gamut, the whole game.
I mean, you got it right behind your head. Branding. We got to rebrand this entire experience. I love it. Okay, now you go.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna make some administration mad right now. Hot take. All right. We have to start taxing universities. Have to start taxing. Right now, universities don't get taxed. It's a nonprofit. You're gonna want
to log on to YouTube to see my face after that. I was like, oh.
Have to start taxing universities. This is what grinds my gears. We're living in an alternate Narnia fantasy, thinking that these universities are nonprofits. These are businesses. These are let me give you some data here, Erin. Harvard has an endowment of $41 billion. $41 billion that they just make money off of, and they don't increase their students that they teach. Right? They openly said we could double the size of our students and not diminish the quality of our education. They don't do it, and they're just bankrolling, making money off their endowment. Yale is sitting at $30 billion. They're not taxed.
Yeah, that's hard to argue. I would say that most of higher education is not in that seat right now. Mm-hmm. I've got to, put a call out to our small and medium-sized private institutions. They may not be able to afford to do that. But maybe there's a barrier. I mean, maybe there's a barrier when your endowment hits X number, and if you're not going to decrease that endowment by increasing enrollment or access to higher ed, then you're not going to qualify as a nonprofit anymore. I mean, maybe we set up stricter standards for what qualifies, because I do think there's lots of tiny institutions out there that they would go under if they had to pay tax at this point, right? So maybe there's some better qualifiers of like, you can't have $30 billion in the bank and tell us that you're a nonprofit.
It's the same as individuals. Someone who makes less than $30,000 a year pays a lot less taxes. In theory, I know there's loopholes and whatnot, but someone that makes $1 million a year. Yeah, absolutely. There's a threshold. The more you make an endowment, the more you tax. But yeah, you can't sit on that. This is what I'm saying. This is what's going to get this off my gears. We start taxing it unless you do this, right? Harvard, if you've got $41 billion in the bank, if you spend 10% of that a year on innovation, on diversity inclusion, you don't have to pay the taxes. Like, it's basically donating to your own nonprofit. Just spend it on innovation or on, not for faculty bonuses or administrative bonuses, or not bonuses, but like on students. If you spend it on students, you don't have to pay the government. Man.
And I tell you what, there's been some heat on some elitist schools on the amount of Pell eligible students. I'd say you've got to get more Pell eligible students into your school. That has got to be a priority, and you've got to support them above Pell, because Pell's not going to cover it at your school. So, I would love to see, a movement on that of, we've got to get more Pell students in these elite schools. And not just, the elite of the elite going to,
hey,
the Ivies.
Talking to a Pell student right here. I was a Pell grant funded student. I didn't have any family, didn't have any money. That's the only way I could go to college. So yeah, how can we expand that, get more people into this education? 100%. So that's my gear. We're going to tax them. A lot of people on the administration is unhappy right now, but we got to do it. We have to do it. Did you have another one, or did you have another one?
I have one more.
Okay, go.
And it's about standardized tests. We have got to get rid of standardized tests in higher ed. I literally don't understand how a place that emphasizes research and academia, that uses standardized tests, which have already been shown via research to benefit white male students, also white students in general. But we know standardized tests are not benefiting marginalized populations. And yet we continue, and I say we as higher ed as a whole, there are lots of institutions, including our own, that are you don't have to submit a standardized test, but there's too many that still depend on that. And I think it's so awful. Like, if you're not advocating at your institution to get rid of it, you've got to be doing that. You have to be advocating for that, because it doesn't, like, I don't understand how a place that is filled with so many brilliant minds is still continuing to use a flawed measurement tool. That it doesn't make any sense to me. If this was our research in our program, we would be saying to stop using this. And yet that's what we're still using to get people into our colleges and our universities as an industry. It's weird.
The data backs you up, right? All the data in the world says certain, especially white individuals, do much better on average, and they're skewed and whatnot. Here's a question for you. For a student coming into university to apply for university, what do you want them to submit for application?
Well, I want them to submit their GPA. It's hard. It's somewhat flawed as well, because we know that grading isn't standardized across the board, but it's the best thing we have. You know, I want interviews. I'd love for people to interview, and be trained to interview not just their people who look like them, right? So how do we create interview systems or essay systems that are fair and balanced? And not, part of it is the elite are also able to pay for a lot of prep for interviews and for essays and for the ACT and SAT. So it's like, you have to find a way to battle that. And it is hard. It is hard. I get that that's not an easy solution, but there are plenty of places doing it. So we've got to figure out, I get that a student with a 1.0 might not be in high school, might not be successful, but how are you telling me two students with a 4.0 and they have 3 or 4 different points on their ACT? How are you telling me that one is going to be successful and one is not going to be successful? Yeah. We're also seeing that the ACT is not a great indicator of success. The GPA is a much stronger indicator of success than the ACTs or the SAT score.
Absolutely.
So I think we have to use GPAs until we get something better.
I like that. Yeah, I think the one idea I have is, well, I don't know how it is, if it's GPA, if it's like transcript, I don't know what it says, but as long as we're able to say, some people say, don't let anything, just let everyone in and then let them, see where they need to be. And I don't agree with that by any means, because you're not setting up every student for success. I don't actually agree with the like cliche term of treat everyone equally. Because some students, if you put them at the average level, whatever you think the average level of an English class is, and they weren't prepared for that level, they're going to get frustrated and stop college. You got to say, okay, we need to boost them up. So we need to get them into a remedial class to get to that level, so they don't feel frustrated the first week. They don't take out all this debt the first week and then figure out, I can't do this, but because they were put in the wrong class to begin with. Let's boost.
But I'm anti-remedial courses too.
You're anti.
I am anti-remedial courses. They are a waste of freaking money. They're a waste of money, because you know what you do? You put them in this first class that's required for the major. Do not make them take a class. And you know what? Math is a little bit different. I think math is a little bit different. When we talk about English, I want you as an institution to spend more money on tutoring. I want you to spend more money on coaching. And I do not believe in remedial courses.
Oh, we disagree, Erin.
We disagree. I think they're a waste of money and a waste of time.
What do you
and you know who's teaching them? Do you know who you have teaching them across the institution? Who? You've got adjuncts. We're not having full-time faculty teach remedial courses.
We've got awesome adjuncts. We've got amazing adjuncts that can teach.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying you're not like, we won't invest in remedial courses the same way we invest in the first course required for the major. That is what I'm saying.
Hot button, Erin. Hot button.
Hot take.
We can't treat everyone equal in the way of education.
And I'm not saying you do.
You got to boost.
I'm saying you boost people up through greater support. I'm saying almost every single 18-year-old can get through an English course if they're given support.
All right. Well, you know what? This sounds like a whole other episode.
It might be on remedial courses.
I want to hear from our listeners. Maybe I'm just completely wrong on this. Maybe I'm Doug in the saying I'm wrong. I want to hear. Tweet us, right? Tweet us.
I think both people on both sides have students' interest at heart. Yeah. I think we have to figure out a way to make it the best solution for the student. And it might be a little bit of your solution. It might be a little bit of mine. I don't think anybody who is on either side of this topic is like F students. Like, I don't think that's how anyone feels about it, but I am very anti-remedial courses. I'm so excited we discovered this today.
I learned something.
Yeah. Let us know, comment on our YouTube page or tweet us, let us know how you feel about remedial courses. This is a good find today.
I love it. All right. We're about to Can I give you one more?
Yeah. Let's hear it.
Okay. And this is going to rub a lot of feathers. Drum roll. Can we have what grinds my gears is we can't even have a conversation. Not even that we need to do something about it. We can't even talk about the fact of tenure. We can't even talk about it. That grinds my gears. Now, before you get all triggered and you come at me on Twitter and YouTube, I'm not saying get rid of tenure across the board. Okay, that is not what I'm saying by any means. So you can just erase your tweet. All right, this is what I'm talking about.
Delete.
We need to change the process. Of tenure. For one, tenure was created to protect faculty who were saying outlandish things in class. When was the last time we said outlandish things in class? That's not a thing that really happens anymore. So that's kind of out. It's to protect research, so faculty don't have to only research things that are profitable. Okay, I get that, right? If you're doing research on something that's not profitable, you got to be protected, right? You got to be protected there. Totally agree. But if you don't fall into that category, that doesn't include you, right? So if that's not your area, then that doesn't include you. And it protects against the university making choices on just a profitable stance, right? Thinking, hey, this Fortnite major would get a lot of students. Faculty can push back and say, you can't do that. That's unethical, right? There's not jobs in Fortnite building and whatnot. Awesome. But so we gotta think about what the purpose of it was to begin with, where we are today, what kind of roles. But here's the other thing. It is built on a way of basically taking advantage of junior faculty in an unfair business practice that would literally not work in any other business ever, right? And again, higher ed's not a business. We already talked about that, and I'm trying to tax it, so I'm already the devil. But we've got junior faculty that can't speak up. They can't, if they see something that's going on that's not right, they can't speak up against anyone. Not just their supervisor. They can't speak up to anyone because that person who's not their boss, that's just another faculty member in another college of anywhere, may be on their tenure committee that decides if they get tenured or not. Well, how is that a healthy situation to work under as a new?
Here's the thing. I actually do think that faculty need protection around academic freedom. I actually do believe that because while people aren't saying outlandish things, there are also people that think that non-outlandish things are outlandish. Okay. So I do think faculty need to be able to teach from a perspective. I don't think that should be earned via tenure. That should be earned via being a faculty member. Like if you have come and you've gotten hired because of your level of expertise in your area, as long as you're teaching from your area, that should be protected. So if you're a biology instructor and the way you teach biology isn't in line with your students, how they believe biology happens, evolution, etc., you should be protected. You are an expert in your field, and that is your right to teach biology from your expertise. Absolutely. And we hired you for that. You should never feel like you're going to get fired because you came in and taught biology from a scientific standpoint and not via a way another student might view it. I believe, but I don't think you shouldn't have to be tenured to be protected in that way. That doesn't make any sense.
No.
An expert should be able to teach from their level of expertise. Absolutely. But why that's gained through tenure, I don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. And there, I mean, I see there's definitely some positives on the tenure side. And I think even if we just have the conversation. So again, not saying we're going to delete it by any means, but we got to change at least the process, at least the tenure process, like writing portfolios, pre-tenure portfolio, final portfolio. That process is an ugly process that no one talks about, because if you talk about it, right? And full transparency, I'm tenured, so I would never have this conversation, Erin, if I wasn't tenured. I literally wouldn't have the conversation. But those junior faculty can't, because the wrong person listens to it, and that person writes you a terrible letter. That anyone can write you a letter in your portfolio without you knowing. I can write a letter for anyone. How is that? And right. I can dog on you all day, or I may be chosen to be on your portfolio committee that reviews you to see if you're worthy enough for this. Like that. It's just not a healthy system to work with colleagues and to progress, especially as a junior faculty, right?
And I would say from a student, because I always think about this from students.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
You are not getting the best out of your faculty in those years. Mm-hmm. Because they don't feel like they have academic freedom. They don't feel like they can speak up. They don't feel like they can even advocate maybe for what they need for students, right? Because of some of that fear. And so what I think, again, I don't know enough about the tenure process because I'm not faculty, but what you're saying to me sounds like that's not student-centered. Students need the best of a faculty member from the day they walk in the door. Right? They need a faculty member who can advocate for them. They need a faculty member who can speak up when something's wrong, can say that's not right. But if you're not empowered to do that until you're tenured, you're losing some of their best years.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You're losing some of the best that you could get from that individual.
Yeah. And the elephant in the room, we've also got every university in the entire United States. You know that person, again, no one's going to out that person publicly, but you know that person who's tenured that's phoning it in. They're phoning. It's the
Dr. York. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Definitely not the majority. Definitely not the majority by any means. But there's that one. And do we need to change the process for one person? No. This is my call to action, right? So I know we're on here. We're kind of bitching, right? And this is our grinding gears moment. I'm going to call it bitching and grinding, whatnot. But we just got to think about, okay, what actionable thing can we do? Is how can we support junior faculty more? Because this process is not set up well specifically for junior faculty. If I would say, if this is a pie in a 10-year conversation, what's the majority thing that if we could solve one thing for this, it's how can we support junior faculty more? How can we make this an inclusive environment for them? How can we make them feel like they are supported? They can risk take, they can try things, they can innovate, they can do these things. That's what I want. So that's my grind my gears, Erin. How many people do we piss off?
I don't know. Hopefully a little bit of everyone. We made some people happy. We made some people mad. Hopefully something we said resonated with you. And I think all of these things, for the most part, are about us wanting to make higher ed better. Or whatever I want to call it. I'll let you know when I come up with the perfect name for higher ed. But it's about access. It's about opportunity. It's about how do we open this and how do we make this better? How do we move forward faster so that our industry doesn't become the blockbuster, of post-secondary education?
I love it. Awesome. Hey, I'll see you on Yik Yak later on.
Thanks for listening to Disrupt You. Have a question for the host? Just send that over to Dr. York via Twitter at Prof. D. York, and it could be featured on the show. We'll see you next week for another dive into the future of higher education.